Vikings, let's win this game.
Vikings fans, something big is happening inside the halls in Minnesota. There is a major piece of the offense facing a heavy contract decision and off-field drama. There is a defensive guy who played out of his mind in 2025, and almost nobody talked about it. There is a name in the secondary gaining real ground and becoming the scheme's Swiss Army knife. And there is recognition for the specialists too. But that last story is going to hit the locker room in an ugly way. But before we crack open every detail real quick, subscribe to the channel and drop your take in the comments. This is a group conversation. Nobody lives Vikings football alone. Look, this is the kind of topic that splits the fan base at the bar and in the family group chat, because it is about talent, the future of the offense, and that annoying question, can you trust him? I have seen too many great prospects trip over dumb stuff, so I stay cautious. The name at the center is Jordan Addison. He is reaching that contract moment where the team can take the easy road, pick up the fifth-year option, and keep him locked in longer at a number that, for a high-end number 2 wide receiver, can look cheap by NFL standards. On the field, he produces. He is averaging about 885 receiving yards per season and has 22 touchdowns in 46 games. That is real production. But on the other side, there is the wear and tear of the drama. Addison has gotten into driving trouble more than once, and that turned into a suspension right at the start of 2025. 3 games gone, and the team is the one paying for it. Fans love to say, just stay clean. But a franchise does not run on hope. It runs on calculated risk. The outside message, like what Mark Ross said on NFL.com, is pretty direct. Keep the core pieces together and try to get the most out of J.J. McCarthy, or whoever is under center. The part a lot of people miss is that the fifth-year option is not only about keeping the player, it also affects guaranteed money. Addison's suspension wiped out guarantees from his 2026 base salary. If the Vikings pick up the fifth-year option, it effectively gives him a safer package for 2027. So the question changes, does the team want to reset the punishment in practice? Or do they want him to prove again that he has learned? And then there was London. Different routine, head not fully in it. Addison skipped a walkthrough and ended up benched for the first quarter against the Browns. Coaches hate that. But here is the part that drives you crazy and pulls you back in at the same time. He made up for it with a touchdown that sealed the game with 25 seconds left. That is the Addison experience. He makes you furious, then he saves you with one huge play. I swear I have watched this movie about 3 times. Let me be crystal clear. I would pick up the option, yes. The talent is real and the offense needs continuity. But I would also tighten the culture leash. Rules, accountability, constant check-ins, no excuses. This fan base in purple and gold can handle pressure, but it cannot handle repeated sloppiness. And there is more. Jalen Naylor is sitting there as the number 3 receiver and could be re-signed. That gives the Vikings leverage in talks with Addison like, we like you, but we have options. And you only get this kind of Vikings fan read right here, because this is exactly how the front office thinks when the door closes. Tell me what you would do. Pick up the option and ride with it, or wait 1 more year to see if he finally grows up for good. Hold that thought, because the next story is about a defender who played like he owned the place in 2025 and barely got any credit. There are players who never make noise. No canned quotes, no constant highlights. But when you watch the full game, you start to see who is holding the whole thing together. In 2025, that guy was Blake Cashman. And I mean that kind of linebacker who shows up everywhere. He fills the run, he shuts down the middle, he makes the tackle that prevents the disaster. While everyone argued about the quarterback, the future plan, and the brutal schedule, he was out there cleaning up the mess. His numbers are serious. 144 tackles on the season, a career high. He added tackles for loss, 2 sacks, pass breakups, and a forced fumble. And get this, even though he missed 3 games, he still finished among the league leaders. That matters. It is not empty stat padding, it is constant presence. What frustrates me is how this flew under the radar. People talk about Brian Flores' scheme, and they should. But a scheme without execution is just ink on paper. Then PFSN dropped their all-pro defense and put Cashman on it. They used an impact metric and gave him a grade of 90.8. Interior linebacker, second best by that scale, only behind Jordan Brooks. They also pointed out the efficiency, a low missed tackle rate. That is gold in a defense built on aggression. And there is a very Vikings layer here too. Cashman is from Eden Prairie, Minnesota. He understands what it means to play here. You can feel it. That is not romanticizing. It is just watching him chase plays when everyone else looks gassed. I watch it and think, that is hometown ice in his veins. Now comes the part that hits the wallet and the roster plan. He is entering the final year of his 3-year deal. If there is no extension, he becomes a free agent after the 2026 season. Flores' defense fits him perfectly, especially next to Eric Wilson. They complement each other. If you remove that middle piece, you change how the defense communicates. You lose quick adjustments. And in 2025, with the offense sputtering, the defense was the crutch that kept the team standing. Let me put it straight. I would not wait on this. I would push for an extension now. Linebackers who stack 144 tackles and do not miss tackles do not fall from the sky. And if the market smells a bargain, the offers start flying. Then it is too late. And here is what makes it even more interesting. The next story is about a younger defender becoming that wild card in the secondary. If he explodes, the Flores puzzle changes shape, and the fan base will be saying his name every Sunday. You know, when you look at the roster and think, okay, who is really going to take the leap? Most people point to the obvious names, but quietly, there is a guy building trust with Flores and earning snaps the hard way. His name is Jay Ward, and I am talking about a defender who is finally starting to look like what they promised when he came out of LSU. Versatile, physical, and most importantly, hard to read before the snap. That is music to any coordinator who loves disguises. In 2025, he played all 17 games, and it was not just getting on the field. He started 5 games. He finished with 27 tackles and recovered a fumble. That is not superstar box score stuff, I get it. But here is the key. He started showing up in the right place at the right time. That is usually the first sign of a jump. The wild part is where he lined up. He was not locked into safety, period. He took snaps at linebacker. He played the slot. He played outside corner. He even popped up on the defensive line. Based on snap usage people have talked about, his biggest chunk came at linebacker, 93 snaps there, then 72 at free safety, then 40 in the slot, then 29 at wide corner, then 14 along the defensive line. That is not normal. That is Flores playing chess with a piece that can do anything. And that brings us to the room around him. You still have Harrison Smith holding things down, but everyone feels the clock ticking. You have Cameron Bynum, Josh Metellus, and Theo Jackson. There is real talent there, but Ward has a different flavor. He can be the guy you use to confuse quarterbacks. One snap, he is the roof stopping the deep ball. The next snap, he is timing a blitz perfectly. If he does it well, the offense is guessing, not knowing. Let me be very clear. I love this type of player because he helps you stay cheaper without getting worse. If Ward becomes a full-time starter, the Vikings do not have to enter the draft desperate for a safety. Then you can spend a high pick on another need. That changes the 2026 blueprint. And I want to hear from the fan base. Do you see Jay Ward becoming a locked-in starter, or do you still see him as a rotation piece? Talk to me in the comments, because Purple Faithful spots things most people miss. Now hang with me, because the next story has that bittersweet taste. The season was rough, but some real recognition still showed up. And when specialists are involved, certain scars come right back. I am not even going to pretend that does not give you a chill. There are moments you have to breathe and admit it. In 2025, the team took hits on multiple fronts. The offense stalled. The games got ugly. Those afternoons felt 3 hours longer. Still, in the middle of the chaos, there was excellence in a place people often overlook. The name that jumped off the page was Will Reichard, but he was not alone. Long snapper Andrew DePaula was right there with him, and this is not some nice little honor. This is all pro, the kind that actually carries weight. Reichard made first team, DePaula made second team. For a season where Minnesota sent nobody to the Pro Bowl, that feels like a message. You may not have voted for it, but the level was here. Reichard had a ridiculous year. He hit 33 of 35 field goals, and his only 2 misses were from beyond 50 yards. Under 50, he was perfect, 22 of 22. That is the kind of stability that changes tight games. You get to midfield and you do not panic. You think, this is in range. And when the offense cannot move, that becomes oxygen. I remember August. It was preseason and training camp. Fans were nervous. Some days it felt like the ball did not want to go through. Then the season hits and he turns into a machine. He also won NFC Special Teams Player of the Month, and that does not just land in your lap. I get confused by this stuff, I am not going to lie. That is why this recognition feels right. It is not just numbers, it is steadiness. Now let me poke a wound every fan in purple and gold knows. January 10th carries a weird weight around here. It has been 10 years since the kick we wish we could erase. That Blair Walsh miss against Seattle in the wildcard game in 2015. And look at the irony. On that exact milestone, the Vikings get an all-pro kicker. It is like football loves messing with us. And DePaula, that guy is a metronome. This is his fourth straight year making an all-pro team, first or second, and there was a historic detail too. He and Reichard became the first pair of specialist teammates to make the same all-pro team in the same season. That screams chemistry. The snap, the hold, the kick, everything matched. But I will be direct. This is good news, and it is also a reminder. When specialists are shining, it often means the game lived on a knife edge, and wins depended on the foot. That fits the 2025 reality. So the question is, if the specialists were elite, what happens when the rest of the team finally clicks? Then the Vikings becomes a different animal. But before we start dreaming, there is a massive cloud on the horizon. Next up, we talk about Brian Flores and a move that could hit the defense hard. Some news is not about a player. It is about the person drawing the blueprint. And when that person leaves, the whole team can change overnight. The defense loses its identity. Fans feel it on the first drive. The eye of this storm is Brian Flores. His contract with the Vikings expires in January. That means he can explore whatever comes next. Head coach or defensive coordinator somewhere else with more money and more power. And based on what Tom Pelissero has said, an extension in Minnesota does not look like it is front of mind for Flores right now. He is looking at the big chairs. I get it. That is the NFL. But it still puts that cold feeling in your stomach. Because the truth is simple. In 2025, with an offense that could not get out of its own way, the defense carried this team on its back. Third in total defense by yards allowed, second against the pass, seventh in points allowed. That does not happen by accident. That is scheme. That is aggression. That is halftime adjustment. And that has Flores' fingerprints all over it. When you see quarterbacks getting hit with disguises, blitzes coming from nowhere, and the secondary scrambling reads, you know where it comes from. Pelissero also made it clear the timeline is early. First comes the head coach and general manager carousel. Only after that do teams really start calling around for a coordinator. But that after is the danger. If Flores does not land a head coach job right away, the phone will not stop ringing once his deal is officially up. Then the Vikings is forced into a bidding war, and bidding wars almost never end cheap. And there is one nightmare scenario to watch: the Dallas Cowboys. That is the kind of team that looks at Minnesota and says, we want that. They've already interviewed the Vikings defensive backs coach, Durante Jones. So this is not paranoia. They are sniffing around the Vikings staff. If Dallas pulls Jones, you already lose a key piece. If Dallas also comes after Flores, that is an earthquake. And honestly, that would feel like a punch in the gut for anyone who buys in to defend the North. I picture the locker room with rumors every day, meetings with that weird vibe, and the fan base in purple and gold refreshing updates like it is a live scoreboard. I do it too, and I try to stop, and I fail. Let me be honest, the Vikings needs a plan A and a plan B yesterday. If Flores stays, great, the defense keeps its identity, and you can fix the offense through the rest of the roster. If he leaves, you need a ready-made successor, someone who keeps the aggression and the system language, otherwise you lose an entire year just learning it again. And that is where it gets heavy, because every other story today, the contract decision, the defensive standouts, the specialist excellence, all of it changes weight if the defensive architect changes addresses. This is not just a job change, it is a change of direction. With that on the table, you look at the moment of this team differently. What is coming is not only roster decisions, it is identity decisions. See how these stories connect? Nothing is random. This is a Vikings team trying to find itself again with talent, scars, and huge decisions on the table. You look at Jordan Addison and think about the balance between trust and accountability. You look at Blake Cashman and see the kind of piece that holds the defense together. You look at Jay Ward and picture the next surprise coming out of nowhere. Then Will Reichard and Andrew DePaula show that even in a brutal year, there was excellence where people do not always look. But everything gets louder when the topic is Brian Flores, because losing him would mean losing the defense's DNA. And without that defense, 2026 could start with that forced reset feeling. Here is my bold take. If the Vikings keeps Flores and makes the right choices on offense, this team scares people again faster than most expect. Now I want to hear you. Comment it out. This space belongs to everyone who lives and breathes Vikings football. What would you do with Addison? And if Flores digs in and leaves, who do you trust to protect this identity? Stay tuned. SKOL Vikings. Let's go.